Hi everyone, this is Frank DeMore at the End Times Research Ministry, connecting the dots between Bible, prophecy, and current events. And today is October the 14th, 2013, America in Crisis. And there's a lot of news today, so I'd like to get right to that news. And by the way, if you just found my YouTube channel and you'd like to get my documentary book today, which is the latest update of October the 12th, 2013, go to my website, www.endtimesresearchministry.com. And when you're there, just scroll down as you see here, my page, click this link, download the book today for free. Now, I'm going to connect the dots between what's happening in the world compared to what the Lord shows us in His Word. Now, if you read the second chapter and the seventh chapter of the book of Daniel, you will see that God had given Daniel a vision of the world empires from the time that Daniel was alive until the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And very briefly, let me just show you that there was a colossus figure that Daniel saw. God allowed Daniel to interpret this dream for the king Nebuchadnezzar, who was ruling Babylon at that time, and he is shown as the head of this colossal figure. And so down through the ages, we saw each one of the world empires that God showed to Daniel to give the interpretation to King Nebuchadnezzar. Every one of those world empires in succession came into play just like God showed Daniel to give to the king. Now, we are at a time where we're in the last generation because we've already seen in the past, in history, we saw the Babylonian Empire, we saw the Medo-Persian Empire defeat the King Nebuchadnezzar, and then Alexander the Great swiftly rode in, just like the prophecy said, and he destroyed the Medo-Persian Empire. And we know from history, Alexander the Great died at a young age, and his kingdom was divided up into four parts. It's just like the prophecy said it was going to be happening. Four generals got the territories of the Grecian Empire. And then what happened? Rome, which is symbolized by the legs of this figure, Rome defeated the Grecian Empire, which was signified by this era that you see right in here, the Bronze Age, if you will. And then the last part of this vision that God gave to Daniel, we know that is the feet, the 10 toes that he talked about. The revived Roman Empire that would shoot out in the last days from the legs, and it would turn out to be the revived Roman Empire, the feet and the toes. And Jesus, we see in the book of Revelation, 10 kings are going to be giving over the power and authority over to the Antichrist. He's going to be able to rule the world. How is he going to do it? Well, Jesus gives us that information in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 17. And you're going to see why I'm giving you the connection here. Now, before I read Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 17, I want you to understand this, because this is very, very important. The legs of the Roman Empire, which used to be, we know that for a fact in history, Rome defeated the Grecian Medo-Persian, or the Grecian Empire. And Rome obviously dissolved, just like the rest of those empires. But in the last days, they are going to rise again. All right? And then we know as the end of the day that there would be 10 kings from this empire, this revived Roman Empire, that we're going to give all their power and authority over to the Antichrist. 10 of them. So what we have today is the European Union, the western leg of the European Union. They are identical to the same nations that used to be in the first Roman Empire. So you don't have to wait for the revived Roman Empire. It's already here. And in my book, I documented this beyond a doubt. It's already standing. Now, what we don't have are obviously the 10 kings to give all their power over yet. But they're there. Circumstances haven't happened yet. But when you take a look out into the news media and you see what's going on compared to what Jesus said, we know that the time is coming very, very soon, I believe, that these 10 kings are going to be giving their power over to the Antichrist, and it will be coming from, I believe, the Western European Union to revive the Roman Empire. Now, in order for that to happen, and these 10 kings giving all their power over to this Antichrist, the Antichrist is going to control the world. We know this without a shadow of a doubt, and this is the scripture that I was going to read to you before in Revelation. So let me read it now. And he causes all, both small and great, rich or poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, say he that had the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. So eventually something's going to happen to cause this world to fork over the reins to one man to control the world economy, to the point where unless you have the identity of this man, who is obviously the Antichrist through the scriptures we know, that you're not going to be able to what? No man's going to be able to buy or sell. So you're going to be nixed out of the world economy unless you bow down and do what the scripture warns not to do. All right? He's telling us here. And then later on in other parts of the Revelation, we know that Jesus dispatches angels to tell people, don't take this mark, because if you do, you're going to hell, the lake of fire. This is a warning about this man. Now, when you look at what's going on in America is the superpower nation, we know that something obviously has to happen to America to downgrade her superpower strength. Because America is not mentioned anywhere in prophecy except possibly one place in Ezekiel chapter 38 when it talks about the young lions. And we know that the young lions are part of Tarshish in Ezekiel chapter 38. The break-off of Great Britain, the young lions, United States, Australia, and Canada. That's the only place. And in that prophecy there about the Ezekiel 38 war, they do nothing. These young lions, of which America is involved in, they do nothing but give formal protest. And that definitely doesn't sound like a superpower. So something has to happen to America. We're seeing that progress taking place, the progression of the downfall of America. Now, there's a lot of news today, as I said. Let's go over to the first one. And you'll see this Chinese flag flying over because China said something today, and let's just bring it to light here. Deamericanized world needed after U.S. shutdown, China media. And of course, they're in reference to the shutdown, the government shutdown of America, and how it's starting to creep in and it's starting to affect a lot of other people. Says while the U.S. politicians grapple with how to open or reopen their shuttered government and avoid a potentially disastrous default in their debt, the world should consider de-Americanizing, a commentary of China's official news agency said Sunday. As the U.S. politicians of both political parties fail to find a viable deal to bring normality to the body politic they brag about, it is perhaps a good time for the befuddled world to start considering building a de-Americanized world, the commentary on state news agency Zentkirk said. But there are other information on here, but what I wanted to get to the point here, the meat of the material, is that China is calling for this de-Americanized world. And of course, if you know what the prophecy says, and you know that the United States plays no major role, then what China is actually saying here, we know that eventually it will happen. And of course, China is going to play a major role in prophecy because we do know, again, from the book of Revelation, it talks about an army of 200 million men that will cross the Euphrates River. China's from the east. It talks about this army of 200 million men from the east that will cross the Euphrates River when it dries up. So China is going to definitely play a role, whereas the United States, they're going to have something happen to them, and I believe that it is a good possibility that what we're seeing in the government now is the prelude to the destruction of the American way. Now let's move on to the next article. Now in my book, I have a section there. You'll see it in chapter 1 where it outlines the different nations who have been calling for a one world government and to get rid of the United States dollar as the reserve currency. And there's more chatter every year about this particular event, getting rid of the US dollar as the pinnacle dollar to do business around the world. And again, it goes hand in hand with the downfall of America. But China, in the past, has been one of those nations who have been pushing for a new reserve currency. So, look at the headline. China's official press agency calls for a new reserve currency and a new world order. And of course, anyone who believes in the scriptures know that the new world order is in fact coming. We can't be 100% sure exactly how it's going to transpire, but we do know that it's coming. And the events that we're seeing in America could help that along, the New World Order. We assume it is a coincidence that on the day in which we demonstrate China's relentless appetite for gold, driven by what we and many others believe is the country's desire to have a call option on a gold-backed reserve currency when the time comes. Just posted China's official press agency. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out here before I go on is that you notice that they're talking about gold. Now, when you read Revelation chapter 18, it talks about the gold and the silver and other items as well that people are going to be holding dear to their heart, thinking that this is the possession they have. And so I've been telling the people about the gold and the silver. Watch the prices skyrocket. Now, if America does drop down and that currency of the American dollar is no longer reserve currency, gold and silver are going to go through the roof. And so you could see the connection between the rise of gold and silver. Now, I know that right now you may not think that it's not that good. The gold especially has risen over the years. And silver is fluctuating, but it's going to skyrocket just like the gold is going to do. Because we know that the people, according to the Revelation chapter 18, are crying over the gold and the silver and everything else that they lost, things that they held dear to their heart. So let me go on here. What I wanted to show you, more or less the meat of this article, is some of China's, which as a reminder is the single largest offshore holder of the U.S. Treasury paper and the second largest of all, only second naturally to the Federal Reserve at $85 billion in monthly monetizing flow, is what is keeping rates from exploding higher. Thoughts as captured by this index op-ed. So, what does it say? Reform of the world's financial system should include the introduction of a new international reserve currency to replace the US dollar. Now, there's many people around the world who think that the dollar is never going to be replaced, but this indication of America has to drop down to be a lesser power, then there is a good possibility, and right now it looks like it may and will happen. At least by the direction that it's going right now, that the U.S. will lose that reserve currency status. More and more nations are calling to get rid of it. And then, again, it says the international community could thus permanently stay away from the spillover of intensifying domestic political turmoil in the U.S. Fiscal impasse in the U.S. is a good time for befuddled world to start considering building. This is the article that I already presented in the beginning of my presentation in the video. De-Americanized world. Here's another one. Impasse has left many nations' dollar assets in jeopardy, and the international community agonized. Other cornerstones should be laid to underpin a de-Americanized world, including a respect for sovereignty, recognizing authority of UN in handling global hotspot issues and giving development and emerging markets economies, more say in a major international financial institutions. In other words, downgrade America, because America has been the one that's been leading all of that. Now, purpose of such changes is not to completely toss the United States aside, rather to encourage Washington to play a much more constructive role in addressing global affairs. Of course, if and when the day comes that the USD is no longer the reserve currency, the US dollar, that's what they're talking about there, Kiss America's superpower or any power status, which is now based purely on the USD's reserve currency status and the ability to fund half the U.S. budget deficit with debt promptly monetized by the Fed, goodbye. And that is the truth. So what they're saying here, if this dollar the reserve dollar currency of the America falls under, then kiss the status of America goodbye. And that, my friends, is what I'm looking for. That's what I'm thinking, at least, how America can be downgraded so that she is at a point where she's not going to play a significant role in Bible prophecy. Now, in every instant, when we see everyone, let me go back here. Every instant when the Lord gave the information to Daniel the prophet, he gave specific details about each one of these empires, world empires that were going to come into existence. And every one of them did. I already went through them. I'm not going to go through them again. But knowing this, that if America was supposed to be this world empire, which they never have been, and they still aren't, if they were, you would think that the Lord would give us as many details about America as the last world empire as he did with Babylon, the Medo-Persians, the Grecian, the Roman Empire, and then eventually the last Roman Empire. But no, it's out. There isn't any information. And so we know a revived Roman Empire, not the United States of America, but the actual nations that used to be in the old Roman Empire are coming back again. They're already here, as I showed you, in the Western European Union. And it is coming at a time and happening at a time where America is beginning to lose their power. Now, as America, the politicians are in Washington not doing their job to keep America going. Obviously, we still have the shutdown, and it is causing a lot of problems for a lot of people. Now, here's when it says, folks about to riot. Twitter explodes with outrage over electronic stamp, a food stamp shutdown. Amid major problems reported Saturday all across America with the electronic benefits transfer system, i.e. electronic food stamp debit cards, leaving customers stuck with no way to pay at registers. Many people took a Twitter to express concern. All right, so they did have some tweets. I'm not going to go down there and read those tweets because I don't like profanity, and I'm not going to read those because there are some people there that wrote profanity, but if you wanted to go into it, I can't stop you from going to it. But here's the bottom line. People are starting to get aggravated. People, when they get aggravated, they lose patience. And when they lose patience, things happen. Could riots happen over the ability not to buy food? You're absolutely right, that could happen. Let's go into other article. Now, we were talking about these EBT cards. These are the food stamp cards that you get when you want to go and get the food stamps if you are one of the recipients of this program. And it says EBT card food stamp recipients ransack Walmart stores stealing carts full of food during federal computer glitch. And this is from the Natural News. When the federal EBT food stamp system suffered a critical failure on Saturday, local retailers were disconnected from the federal food stamp database that keeps track of how much credit is left on each individual EBT card. Seizing the opportunity provided by the glitch, EBT card holders in Louisiana ransacked their local Walmart stores, stuffing their shopping carts full of groceries and paying for them with nearly empty EBT cards that essentially had unlimited account balances because all accounting was offline. Now, when the EBT database came back online, the card purchase limits were suddenly restored. EBT card holders abandoned their full carts and just walked away, probably they missed out on participating in a felony theft of groceries. So people, this I believe is a prelude to what could happen when these cards, the amounts of the cards are not restored. If the federal government stays shut and they don't have money to put on these cards or to allow people to shop on the food stamp program, then what you're going to see is riots, not just in this area in Louisiana, but you'll probably see riots across the country for people who are afraid. Fear sparks riot, especially if you know that the government that you're watching is nowhere near of making concessions to stop the shutdown, or in other words, to get it reopened again, to get America going again. Now there's a video here. I'm going to click this video because it talks about this.
In Shreveport, Louisiana, says shelves at local Walmarts were cleared out Saturday night. Shoppers went on a buying spree after their digital food stamp cards showed no dollar limits. That's because of a glitch in the EBT system. It lasted a few hours. When the cards worked again, people abandoned their overflowing carts.
So there you have it. You have people, dishonest people, that have taken the opportunity to actually steal, which is a felony. When you have that much food, you end up, stealing from Walmart. And obviously, when you saw the picture of these carts, there were a lot of people who were doing this.
E-system, it lasted a few hours. When the cards worked again,
look at the number of carts they had there. So it wasn't just one or two people who were going in there to steal from Walmart. But as I said, people do things that when they're afraid, and of course they did abandon these carts when it came back on, because otherwise they would have been arrested if they tried to take the carts out, loaded with the food. But we're starting to see in America things that we have never seen before, the panic. The food panic because of the shutdown. And this is the main objective that I want people to understand. Now, considering the fact that we know that this world is going to experience a new world order, or if you will, the rise of the Antichrist, take a look at the world's bankers, what they're saying. It says, world top bankers warn of dire consequences if U.S. defaults. This would be a very rapidly spreading fatal disease, Jan said on Saturday at a conference hosted by the Institute of International Finance in Washington. I have no recommendations for this audience, but putting Band-Aids on a gaping wound, he said. So what we see coming from this J.P. Morgan Chase chief executive is that actually there'll be dramatic consequences on the value of the U.S. debt and the dollar, like I've been showing you, and likely would plunge the world into another recession. Now, in many of my previous posts I've shown you, and even in my live presentations, I show the people that there has to be something major that will happen that cause not only the United States, but the rest of the world to go into a crisis, a financial crisis. And if you take down the strongest nation, if you take down the strongest currency, the reserve currency of the American dollar, then you're going to have a crisis like this world hasn't seen in a very, very, very long time. And it's going to be probably one of the worst depressions ever, worse than the first depression, a worldwide depression that could give access to the rise of the Antichrist. Because if this were to happen, and the world would be plunged into another recession and obviously get deeper into a depression, then the world would be calling for somebody to take over the problem and to restore what we know as chaos that would ensue. Now, going on, says the U.S. Treasury Department has said it expects to max out its borrowing authority next week and won't be able to prioritize payments on the U.S. debt over obligations like Social Security. So in other words, if you stop Social Security and people who are depending on that Social Security, you have another group who would be panicking, like these groups that are holding the food cards, these EBT cards to get food assistance. So you would have another section of the American society who would be in panic. Lawmakers have seemed at an impasse over raising the debt limit. Democrats want to reopen the federal agencies, which have been partially closed since funding ran out on October the 1st, and Republicans insist any debt ceiling deal includes plans to cut government spending. Now, Dimon and other top executives from major U.S. financial firms met with President Barack Obama and with lawmakers last week to urge them to deal with both issues. Now, on Sunday, Dimon said banks are already spending huge amounts of money preparing for the possibility of default. And I hear a lot of people saying that America's never going to default. Now, I hope that's not the case, but let me tell you something. If there was ever a president in office that would do it, you can count on this president to do it. Because he's shown us his colors about where he is going. And we know the agenda is socialize. Agenda 21, definitely going in that direction. So don't say that it is not possible, because I think that it's very possible that the United States would default. And if they did that, then you have another giant step towards getting rid of the reserve currency in America plunging. Then it goes on to say, which he said would threaten, here we go, the global recovery after 2007 and 2009 financial crisis. So it would start creeping into that scenario that would give rise to the Antichrist. We need global strength, he said. We are on the verge of getting it. Please, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot. Damon also defended J.P. Morgan against critics who say the bank has become too big to manage. It has come under scrutiny from numerous regulators and on Friday reported its quarterly loss since Damon took over due to more than $7 billion in legal expenses. So what's the heart of the meat right here to the article? Well, default. Is it possible the United States is going to default? Only God knows what Barack Obama and these other idiots are going to do. But it certainly looks like they're both at an impasse, and it looks like there may be a default. And again, I'm praying that it's not going to happen right now. At least what we can do is postpone it. And then eventually we know something is going to happen, and probably the debt of the United States, which is now pretty close to $17 trillion, something is going to happen. The legs are going to be cut away from America. They will collapse. The reserve currency will go away, and there you go. You're going to have a perfect scenario to give rise to this man, the Antichrist. So in either case, America's not looking good. America is definitely in trouble. She has close to 48 million people. Think about this. The land of opportunity, where 48 million people, or close to that, are on this EBT program, food assistance program. Look at the millions of people who've been out of jobs in the United States, and many of them bailed out of the search for jobs altogether because they've been searching for 3 to 4 years with no opportunities. And people can't afford to work at McDonald's and just without a better life, without opportunities in America. And so we're getting to the point where the 10 toes are going to be coming into reality. let me backtrack for a second, because the 10 toes are definitely a reality, but they haven't taken the position yet. They haven't come out. We haven't seen the 10. Now, we know that the European Union, which is the revived Roman Empire, we know that they have problems as well. And then eventually we're going to see 10 of these nations coming together, and 10 of them are going to give their power over to the Antichrist. How it's going to happen, I wish I could tell you, but the Lord hasn't revealed that to me, and I'm wishing that He would reveal it to someone. But we do know, by what Christ told us, is that it's going to happen. 10 of these kings, and each king is a ruler of one of these countries, will come together, solidify their strength, and then hand that over to the Antichrist. And then you'll have a completion of what God showed Daniel all the way from Babylon to the toes, the 10 toes. And when that happens, you have to understand that all of this is going to happen at the same time where this prophecy will come into fruition as well. Where people in the last days, because of some kind of collapse, some kind of crisis, chaos ensuing, that the world will hand over their authority and say, go ahead, give it to them. We'll take it. That's what they're going to say. Let this one man take care of the world, have him come up with a new system, and of course we know where that system leads to because Jesus told us in Revelation chapter 13, where this man will have some kind of marking, whether it's a tattoo that it enables you that's in the skin to deduct from your checking account, whether it's a little chip smaller than a grain of rice, that Verichip, where you could do the same thing. There's a lot of different scenarios that can be used, and I put them in my book as far as the technology, how people would be able to deduct from their account by using different technologies in their skin. In their skin. Exactly what Christ warned about, in their right hand or in their foreheads. So, let's pay attention to the news. Let's see what happens in the next couple of days. Let's find out if Barack Obama is going to hold firm and not move so that America defaults. And if America defaults on their loans, then you'll understand why there's a lot of people who think that martial law will be called in the United States. Now, in the aspect of a martial law, let me show you something here. Now, again, talking about martial law, I want to show you this video where this Democratic Congresswoman, Mrs. Jackson here, talks about martial law. Watch this.
It is not the truth to suggest that there are not enough voters, members of Congress, that would vote right now today to open this government. It's something called a continuing resolution, but it's a bill that you put on the floor that has been passed already by Republicans and Democrats in the United States Senate. This is not an idea of anyone over another person. Republican and Democratic senators have already voted for this clean bill that we could vote on today. We have martial law. What that means, and my colleagues know what it means, is that you can put a bill on in just minutes.
So, it says, someone please explain this to me. I'd like to explain it to you. With this, I don't even know what to call this woman. What she is saying is, let's have martial law, enforce it by martial law. And of course, if you did this, what you would do is right away, for all the people that had the conspiracy theories out there, it would add fuel to the conspiracy theories for the call of martial law, and then you would have people coming out of the woodwork with their weapons and so forth, and then you would find out why the United States government purchased billions of bullets. Because if they called martial law like this Congresswoman Jackson said, I mean, I can't believe she said that. That is, the fix that she's saying, call martial law. All you're going to do is add fire, gasoline to an already blaze. Not good. This lady needs to go. She needs to be impeached because what she's saying here is not good for America. But look this is what we're faced with. We're faced with people like this that need to go. We need level-headed people who are going to take care of the problem, not cause other problems that other people are going to have to take care of. So again, now you know why I named this America in Crisis. Keep your eyes on the news, because what we do know, and there's other news that are coming out showing us things that are taking place in these last days, and they're all happening now. And that's why I'm trying to show the people, look it's not a joke anymore. The things that are happening are things that God said were going to happen, and we were supposed to watch them. Watch for them. It's a commandment by the Lord. He said, keep on the watch. You'll read it in the Gospels. He didn't say maybe. He said, keep on the watch. And so watch what's going on. Turn your news on tonight. Let's go see what's going to happen if one of the parties are going to cave in and help America out. Because if it isn't, what I didn't tell you is the next step is obviously in giving chaos rise to a crisis and chaos. Another portion of a group that would be hindered by the complete shutdown would be veterans benefits. And you're talking about millions of veterans who depend on that money to survive. And so you would have another large group of people who need that, who've worked for their country, many of them disabled people who lost limbs and eyesight and so forth, that would be thrown into another category. So Barack Obama, it certainly looks like he is the president who could make this happen, make the default happen. And I'm hoping that he's not. But somebody has to start praying for America, because definitely America is under the thumb, if you will. And the reason why they're under the thumb is because Barack Obama has allowed this nation to be cursed because of what he is doing to Israel. It's all tied in. Barack Obama is trying to divide up the land of Israel, to give the Palestinians their own land. God said anybody who did this, he would cut into pieces. He would destroy them. And now we're starting to see how the destruction is coming about financially in America. So it's definitely worth watching. Keep your eyes on the news. And above all, keep your eyes on the Lord Jesus in His Word, because He's revealing to us these last days prophecies that are coming to pass. Please, let me help you to understand, to see the prophecies, the linking, the connection. And if you don't like how I'm saying it, go somewhere else. But learn the connection between the things that the Lord told us to look for and what's going on, because without the connection, you're going to be in the dark. God help us all. We pray for America that they come to their senses and open up the United States government.